You can live a life full of love and light if you just let the Spirit guide you. It's the remedy where you'll find peace, but you must let the Spirit guide you.
Who made y'all priests?
What's up, world? This is Iya Fafore.
What's going on, good people? This is Oséùn. Welcome back to the Who Made Y'all Priest podcast, where we talk about our spiritual journeys, our everyday life experiences, and the issues of the time from the perspective of two people who just happen to be priests. Fafore, man, we back. Season 3, man. What's going on?
What's good? Hey, Happy New Year to all the family out there. Hope y'all had a blessed New Year.
What's been going on, man? What you been doing in your downtime, man? You had some downtime this time?
No, really not no downtime again this time. Right before you know this, but right before the New Year, I was down bad. I think that vid got me. Ooh, I was down bad. I don't even get sick, so I don't know, man. I was down bad for a few days.
Yeah, man. You probably the most disciplined vegan I know, and when you tell me that you sick, I'm like, look at this. He eats so clean, and the vid still got him. The vid don't kill you, vegan.
Nah, man. See, I've been eating them Zuzus wham like, yeah, man.
You've been out here eating Oreos. You've been out here sneaking and eating Oreos, man.
Hey, this has been the worst year of eating since I've been vegan. Like, I was vegan for real this year as opposed to plant-based, But I'm back focused, man. All of that is behind me. You know what I'm saying? I'm moving on to the new year. But speaking of the new year, so I wanted to ask you this. I never asked you this before, but around this time every year, we always get those posts from people about how this is not the real new year. The new year is in March and this, that, and the other. How do you feel about that?
I did some studying about the calendar back in the gap and understand that both January and February were added to the original 10-month calendar to kind of keep up with the solar calendar, when most indigenous cultures use the moon to determine their months. And some kind of way we got on this sun thing. So yeah, the new year is kind of made up in January for us, and it is more around the vernal or the spring equinox in March. What about you? What you got to say about that?
Well, based on what you were saying, I wouldn't be surprised if that changed at the same time around a couple of 100 years ago, where the moon sign was like the primary sign that you were associated with, and that moved to the sun sign. But and that makes sense because it's just easy to calculate, somebody's sun sign. But as a Virgo, as an earth sign, for me, it's all about the practicality of stuff. And does it really matter? And for me, I'm like, I think people say that just as a way of showing, like, I know something that you don't know. Because at the end of the day, what are you going to do with that information? Numerologically, come the 1st of January, the universe goes to shift, and whatever that universal year number is, or whatever your personal year number is, you're going to feel the effects. I mean, you're going to start feeling it a little bit in, the fall, but really come January 1st, that's really going to, come hit you full force. So for me, it's like, it doesn't really matter. It's not like people are going to start planting their crops at different times, which is the reason why it really matters, right?
Right.
Because you say January is the first month as opposed to March. So to me, it really doesn't matter. It's just one of those things that, again, it's people's ways of saying, like, I know something that you don't know.
But Baba always tells us that the everything is based on sex. Everything in the universe is sexual, and I think that that 10-month cycle, that 10-month calendar, was based on sex. It was based on sex, and to add January and February was something that whoever was making the calendar, keeping up with the calendar, deciding what would be what. They couldn't keep up. That was even a year, I believe, in the 1500s where we lost 10 days. It was October the 5th one day and October the 15th the next, just so that they could keep up with the celestial body. So, yeah, the calendar has been changed a few times, but like Baba said, once we live in the Western Hemisphere, we live in a Western culture, so we have this conscious agreement to begin our year on January 1. So that's what we do.
Absolutely. Again, whether we celebrate it on the January 1st or in March, the end of the day, come the 21st of that month, it's going to go into a new zodiac. You're going to feel the shift of a whole new energy based on that zodiac. So everything that's pertinent, we're still able to track, regardless of when we, quote unquote, celebrate the new year. I mean, I don't celebrate the new year. I be asleep. I sleep when the ball dropped. And quite frankly, I never celebrated, New Year anyway.
Right.
For me, my mom said, I'm gonna ask you to just do me one favor. You party and you hang out all the time. You not missing any parties, right? You partied out. Just do me a favor and promise me that you will stay home on New Year's Eve because there's too many drunk, crazy people out.
Right.
And I said, all right. And I think, I can't really remember what I was thinking at the time. I said, okay, I might have just been saying it because I just wanted to just make her happy and go on with it. I don't even know if I actually meant to keep that promise, but I actually did. I kept that promise. I went out one time on New Year's Eve, and a woman I was dating at the time begged me, like, let's go out and hang out. And I had the worst time ever. Not about what was going on. I didn't want to be there. I didn't like, the atmosphere or whatever the case may be. It was just at that point, now where that kind of like sunk in, like, this is what I do. You know what I'm saying? Abstain from the New Year's Eve stuff and deal with that. Man, that ride home was crazy. I had my head on the swivel looking for, drunk driving, things about that nature. And after that, I said, yeah, I'm definitely, gonna hold true with that.
Were you eating Zuzus and Wham Whams then, or were you a vegan at the time?
Oh, no. This was way deep. I was deep in the McDonald's and all that. Oh, yeah.
So
it was so bad, though, that I didn't even stop to hit the Mickey D's on the way to the crib. You know what I'm saying? Because back then, if I'm out that late, I'm going to hit the Mickey D's.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to get me 2 McDoubles with mac sauce, you know what I'm saying, and a fry and a high C orange with no ice, you know what I'm saying?
Right. You still know the order, man. I think you still low key. You be hating on the people that still be eating meat, man. But I know you wish you could taste some of that though.
No, if I had magical powers, you know what I'm saying, I definitely would make, you know what I'm saying, McDonald's had, like, them cheeseburgers have the nutritional value of chickpeas or kale or something like that. I definitely would do that.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm just not really trying to die of a terrible, disease from eating that poison. But it tastes good though. I'm not gonna lie to you now.
Right.
McDonald's was fire.
Right. Yeah. So you've known me for almost 10 years, so when the ball dropped, I've been asleep for 5 hours already. I've been asleep 5 hours, yeah.
Right.
They gotta wake me up. If they gonna shoot firecrackers out here, if they gonna shoot their pistols out here, they gonna have to wake me up because I've been asleep.
The only reason, actually, the last couple of years I haven't been, last year I wasn't asleep. Or I guess this past 2022 ending, I wasn't asleep. And maybe the year before that, man, the suburbs is crazy. Man, with the fireworks and the guns going off, like
Right.
I thought I was in the project. Like they go hard, so yeah, they be tripping.
Yeah. Oh man.
So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and get this first interview of the season jumping off.
So we got a good one for the people, man. It's a season on healing. We're gonna be talking about trauma, how to heal from our traumas, how to heal from past blockages, past emotions. This is gonna be a beautiful season, man. It's gonna be a beautiful one.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and get started.
Let's get it.
Hey y'all.
Hey,
Abora Boye, how you doing?
I'm good. I told say where your phone. I'm chilling.
We really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us on the Who Made Y'all Priest podcast. We really thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us for a little while.
Ashe, I'm glad to be here. Appreciate y'all considering a sister. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. When we talked about doing a season on healing and trauma, yeah, you were one of the first people that we thought about. We was like, man, we got to get Iya Fasewa on. Yeah, we definitely appreciate you coming on for us. We really do.
Absolutely.
Word up.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to the family for those that don't know you, and tell us a little bit about your standing in our tradition of Ifa.
Ashe, yes. Okay, so like you, I have my laptop up because I'm gonna, try to stay focused and on the thing. So my full name is Kendall Margaret Johnson Smith. I'm the daughter of Tina Wilson and Preston Smith. And I do a lot of things. I'm a licensed social worker, soon to be licensed clinical social worker, because we're passing that exam on January 31st. Ashe. And I'm also IFOT certified, so that's Indigenous Focusing-Oriented Therapist. And so I also work as a clinical consultant for a nonprofit here in New York. I work at a high school 3 days a week doing mental health services, similar thing. I'm also a performer. I'm a vocalist for Afro-Haitian folklore dance company. So we got some shows coming up. So I've been in rehearsals for those. And I also own my own business.
Ashe.
Yes, Fasewa Wellness. It's a wellness practice. It does all the things. So individual therapy, clinical consulting. I work with BAM. I work with the New York Philharmonic and integrating wellness. And then also spiritual support. So I do readings. I do house cleanings. I do omieros, little baths here and there. And so, yeah. And so my Ifa name, let's lead to the spiritual piece, is Iya Fasewa. Oséùn Damilola, Aje Egbe, Ifashola, Fayemi Akambi, Omotina. And I'm a priest of Ifa and a priest of Oséùn. I initiated in February 2020, became an Abarisha in August 2016, and so I've been jamming for a little while.
Yeah.
Right. We love to hear all of those names. We love it.
Ashe, right? And like you ever like run it up off the tongue? You know what I mean? He doesn't even say it. It's like all one name. I'm trying to get to that.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey. How did you get to Ifa? How did you get to where you are now spiritually?
Woo! I'm like, who's gonna see this? So
hopefully the world.
Right? Okay. So we're gonna practice transparency and all the things, and vulnerability. So to be fair, I think I was brought in by a romantic partner. And I was told they were being very helpful in what I was dealing with, would just give me like little things here and there. Like I'd be like, I'm dealing with this. He'd like toss 21 pennies at the crossroads. And I'd be like, okay. And then I would do it. And then there was just a shift, right? And there was just a way that I was being engaged with it where I'm like, okay. And then in order to kind of what I feel like kind of fortify the relationship too, in a way to have like a common ground, common language, common practice. I chose to initiate. And I also had to receive Sode at the time because of that person's position. And so, but I was like, yo, this is fresh. Cause then I'm like, look at all these Black people coming together. I got a godmama and a goddaddy. I got, people who are, just willing to hold space for me. I remember when, growing up, I was very strong in my sexuality, if you will. I feel like some folks might have called it promiscuous or out there, or she doing all, moving. To me, I was like, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm getting it where I'm getting it, and Mary Holiday.
Gotcha.
But there was some shame with that. There was like some judgment with that. There was a lot of things. And I remember talking to my godmother. Shout out to Chief Airway. And
Love
she was
her.
telling me about Oséùn. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And she was like, yeah, like you walk. She walks with you. And she was like, she is the deity of like sexuality and sensuality, but most importantly, the creation, like those energies coming together. Like I was mind blown, and my shame fell off. Like I had something to identify this super strong sexual self to. So there's also like those type of experiences where I was like, yo, this is a thing. I need a practice. I need something to do to help understand why I'm going through what I'm going through, what's happening. And so yeah, I've been in it ever since, and just trying to, even though I'm a priest and even though I got my priest Odu, I'm still rocking with my Aborish Odu. Like I'm still like, oh snap, like 7 years later, like okay, like I see, and that makes sense here. So long-winded answer, but yes, I feel like that's how I came into the tradition.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect.
Right. So nothing before E5. You didn't come up in the church like
See what
like
you did
many of
there.
us did?
Well, what's interesting is that me and my brother had a childhood friend named Ori.
Wow.
His full name was Ori Sanmi. And we used to go over to their house and clown about how they would just have like plates of food all over the place. We'd be like, why are they wasting food like that? Like why? Like just bowls of candy and shit around. Like why they just got. And so what I understand now is that like Ori's dad was a Babalawo. We had no clue. And like that was ancestor offerings, right? That was like offerings to Eshu and those and the egg. And I was like, so even as like a kid, we had a reference, but I didn't know I had a reference. And I didn't grow up in the church at all. My parents was not with it. Especially my dad. He was like, his parents though were heavy in it. And so that's where I think I have a respect for Christianity. I have a respect for the Orisha Jesus, right? Like I have respect for that level of love, right? That level of unconditional love and that level of having something to understand your experience.
Right.
And to help you move forward, right? Or yeah. So, but yeah, no, I love me some gospel. Like I'll still shed a tear, if you put some of that on. But it's like gospel and Orisha, like I know. So yeah, that's it.
I should. So Iya, you got initiated as a priest of E5 back in 2020. Right.
Correct.
Right. So that was the point. That was the last time that our Ile went to Africa for initiation. After that, we started doing them here in Houston. So how was that experience like being in Africa for your initiation?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the point where I was like, y'all have these questions, you know what I'm saying, that y'all didn't send me. But yeah. So yeah, and also I'm gonna keep it 100. So I think for me, it was about like I had never, I think, accomplished something like that in my life for one. And I was really going because for me it felt like a next level. But I had no clue what that actually meant.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I was focusing on like, okay, you got to raise this money. What you gonna do? You got to get there. You know what I'm saying? And then it was a lot. It was a lot. I think, I don't know if y'all knew this to be true, but roosters crow all day. It's not just in the morning. Like it's giving all day, right? I can't do spice like that. So the booty burn was real. And the toilet game, the bathroom game, wasn't giving like, ooh, sit and really make it happen. I never missed ice so much in my life. But yeah, but like I think I did have somewhat of a reference because I had been to Ghana before in terms of like the comforts and everything, but it definitely was something I could not have anticipated, could not have necessarily prepared myself for. So I'm okay with, still figuring out the what that I got, but I was very focused on the how I got it. So like how, the fact that like I pushed through a lot of shit just to maintain out there. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't say all the things.
Right.
But it takes you outside yourself like several times a day.
Right.
And so it was like I just grew to learn more about myself, versions of myself that only existed in Nigeria. Abia Kuta, shout out. Yeah, but I think that it was, for me, the biggest takeaway was the fact that like I set my mind to do something and I accomplished it.
Right.
And that was important for me.
That's
I
it.
say.
You know, we heard some of those horror stories about Africa, and Fafore and myself, we decided very early on that we was cool on Africa. Like we not we're not going to Africa. We're going to do it here in Houston at home amongst people that we know. So
Man.
Yeah.
again, shout out for making that happen for yourself and pushing through and, you know, coming out on the other side of that.
Yeah,
Okay, other side
absolutely.
for real.
I went to Nigeria for with a friend to go visit with our family. Went to the village in Igbo land, and yeah, after a couple of days of like taking a bucket of water and pouring it down the toilet to make it flush, I was like, yeah, you know, let's go back to the city. Let's go back to the hotel. Like
Still
this
not
is
cute,
beautiful,
right?
but yeah, I came, I saw, I conquered.
I say, and shout out to y'all for like knowing what you need in order to, you know, have the experience that you want to have. You know,
Right.
I think I learned that I may need a different experience, you know, but next time, but we'll see, because we're still on was it sabbatical? We're still taking a break because
Right.
yeah, I should shout out to Baba Kambi. Okay.
Right,
Word.
right. So before we get too deep into the conversation, tell the family about your educational background and what you do at Fashewa Wellness.
I say, let's go. I can I go back to college? Like that gives it a little bit of reference.
Yeah,
So bam, DePaul University, Chicago, Illinois. That's where I got my BA in psychology. And to be honest, like I wasn't really trying to do school like that. So that was the easiest thing. It came to me that like I was able to understand and just like get the grades and move through. And so yeah, like after that, I went to actually during that time was where I kind of learned the basics of like the fathers of psychology, and they were all white. And I had a hard time understanding that like that was the end of the spectrum in terms of
right.
like contributions to what it is that I was learning, especially as I'm living and walking and breathing a whole different experience just because I'm a Black woman. And a lot of that information felt like it was pertaining to middle class white men, boys, a lot of research. And this was like like 2000, like 99 to 2003. So I'm not sure what was out there at the time, because right now it's very different, you know, and we'll talk about that, right? But so after that, I worked with some first time mothers at a family health center in Chicago. And that was important for me to understand my effectiveness with people, even though I may not be living their experiences. So I don't have children. So I was like, what I'm looking like, you know, holding space for you to bond with your child, right? Or to bond with your, you know, but there were universal things, right? There were things that pertain to all experiences that I was able to pull through. And that was the person. Regardless of what experience, you know, someone might be going through, the human being is still involved.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you know, there's a way that humans move. There's a way that humans work. There's a way that humans, they do their thing, regardless of, you know, so understanding that was like, aha, right? So then I get to New York with no job because I was on some flea shit. And so I get here and I'm doing like some teaching artist work and I'm doing, you know, whatever. And for me, that was, again, like a moment where I was just like, okay, I can be in front of people. I can make people feel good and understand information. And it went from like reading comprehension through like theater activities to actual mental health services. And I'm gonna tell y'all a quick giddy up as to why I went back to school in 13, whatever, 10 plus years after graduating undergrad. Like first of all, y'all heard me, I didn't want to go to school, okay?
Right.
I didn't want, so here I'm like, so I'm a site director. I mean, when I say site director, that means I'm the head. I'm running shit, right? for like 2 or 3 years, we get this new contract to where the site director now has to have an MSW, a master's in social work. That's a graduate, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, well, I don't have one of those. So now I had to become an assistant site director, and they hired someone to come in, and then I had to train them to do the job that I was doing.
Right.
So I was like, luckily, this was a very wonderful white woman, right? That I call a friend to this day, because she was like, that's fucked up. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? She's like, but if you want to go back to school, which I think you should because you're dope and then I'll help you. You know what I'm saying? So in terms of like writing the recommendation, just helping me through just applying to go to Fordham University. Like she was very instrumental in that. Yeah, which was dope. So then I was like, all right, well, I'm going to school. And here I am. So I went to Fordham University, their graduate school social work program. I was supposed to go for 4 years because I had to be part-time, but then 3 years, I was like, this is taking too long. Like, let me just go ahead and wrap this on up. So I finished in 3, and my homie was like, don't forget to say cum laude. And I was just like, yes, I did finish well. Okay. 10 years later, you know, but I'm just like, I don't do this student shit. You know what I'm saying? But no, I did that because I was interested in it, right? But I was able to, again, learn a little bit more about how they're doing this service work, right? And also learn about how they're not doing this service. They calling it service work, but they're actually causing a lot of harm, right? Because they're lacking a lot of understanding. Yeah. I just got put on, I know I'm not getting too up, but I just got put on to this sister, Shauna Marie Brown. Y'all know her? She's what? She has this whole thing, and I just got put onto her, so I don't even want to miss what, but like she talks all about the decolonization of mental health. You know what I'm talking about? And like I'm about to take her course. Because there is, I don't want to get to it, but like I was starting to get put on to sisters like her and to people like her who were starting to name the things that I wasn't seeing in undergrad. You feel me? And then through this job, I had this bomb ass clinical supervisor who then put me on to the IFOT. She was like, I did this program. You should do it too, because you're studying spirituality. This kind of fuses the two. It's trauma. It's all these things. And I was like, okay, bet. Took that for a year. That's a whole other conversation. Because again, I'm more focused on the how than I am the what. So did I walk away with all the things, like all the content and whatnot? Sure, I did the best I could. But I was more focused on like how was KK in that, right? Like how I was tripping off them first 2 modules because they were like drop into your body. And I was like, what does that mean? I don't know. I don't want to. I'm going to sleep. You know, like it's very calming in here. And that's how I meditate. But it was like being able to learn myself in that. Because then now I can have more compassion and empathy for folks who have trouble getting into their body. But as you had mentioned before, as we were talking, that is where a lot of the stuff is. It's in the body. Right. So I think that's my educate. Yeah. I mean, so I became licensed, you know, which is an important thing. And then the next credential is to get LCSW, which is why I'm taking the clinical exam January 31st. Okay, at 11 o'clock. Shout out, you know, prayers. Throw them up.
We got
Yes.
But yeah,
Keep bringing your prayers.
Right, exactly. Thank you. But yeah, so that's is that that's professionally. That's it. Yeah.
And so how did you come to the point of doing exactly what you do right now? How did you get to that point?
You know that phrase, everybody's like, I don't work for nobody.
Right.
That was my motto. I was sick and tired of not being confined by systemic bullshit, to not be able to do what it is that I knew was to be done. Right? So I'm in these school system. I'm still in it, so I'm trying to be, you know, somewhat respectful. But it causes a lot of harm. It does good and it causes a lot of harm. And with the best intentions. But it is yeah, it's not the best. And then I'm also involved with, as a social worker, just with the government agencies and things of that sort, hospitals and whatnot. And those two are just you know, side eye. It's hit or miss, you know. So yeah. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but
no, you definitely you hitting it.
okay. I'm over here like, why am I silencing myself? Like, why am I holding back? Like, let me
Yeah, go in.
open the window a little bit. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
the
Like,
people
it's a
want to know
little
the real.
warm. Well, you know, it's like it's just not. You know, a lot of systems have been grounded in Eurocentric ass thought, right, and foundations. Just from the bare, and so we're now, you know, slowly, not now, maybe the past 20 years. Y'all don't quote me on these good dates and time frames, but it seems like it's new to where we are actually considering the narrative of POC.
Yes.
Like the experiences, I mean, like in systemic type of influence, right? Like a, you know, we might get Indigenous Peoples Day, you know what I'm saying? But we still have 1 month of the
Right.
year. Not saying like I'm trying to advocate for that type of bullshit either, but like just in terms of like ways that they're trying, you know, all this DEI work that's happening in schools and organizations, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion work, like just it's all because folks won't consider other just as equal as the whatever. You know what I'm saying? And it's so deeply rooted that it's like we're just going to continue to have these special programs and, you know, these grants and it's like it's in our whole situation, the division, right? Yeah. So
now, I want to say I really admire what you do. I actually minored in psychology in college. Well, hold on for about 3 weeks. And I took Psychology 105. I'm like, yeah, that's dope. I think I need to, you know, do more, you know, go down this path. So I'm like, I think it's going to be my minor. And then I took the second class. And I swear we talked about the eyeball for like what seemed to be like 6 months. And I'm like, I don't know how that gets you to how people are crazy. Like, I don't, that's not what I came here to learn about.
Right.
So yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead and drop this. But later on in life though, I was thinking back like, man, I should go back to school and get a master's in that field. But I had already had my MBA, and then I was like, dude, are you really about to go back to school and then change careers? And no, so I ended up, you know, not doing it. But being a priest and being a therapist seems to work hand in hand. So how does being a priest make you a better therapist, and even vice versa?
word up. For one, it gives me another context to help understand a person's experience that I don't think is considered in other traditional settings. I hold space for all of you because I know I have to shrink in places and I can't show up and this and that. I do my like I make sure that you are allowed to show up in this space. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but one thing I noticed was that I have a lot more capacity and space to do that for our people than I do for not our people.
Right.
And that is solely based off of the fact that like we don't get those spaces. Y'all got them shits all over the place. Y'all ain't even got to be in a therapeutic space to actually, if you were to you know what? So coming back in terms of no, for real, like so I do my darndest to where like there is, you have like I feel like you have to be able to show up as your full self, and that takes time and that takes trust. And so I think my again, like my references. So another piece too is that, and I'm overlapping a little bit, but like some of the understandings of the spiritual concepts are really helpful for folks who are dealing with a particular trauma or like, so for instance, the idea of ancestor reverence can really impact someone's process of grieving or mourning, can really positively impact someone's depression, right? This narrative that like I'm always alone, no one loves me, no one's ever going to be around me. But what happens if you understand that like, well, you're still here for one. you can still recognize when you're not being loved. So then you know what it looks like. You know what it feels like. What happens if you tried to access it from not people?
Mm.
Right? What if there's other ways that you could still fulfill that? Right? And it's
Right.
expansive, right? It then opens a person up who was like this to being like, oh shit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I mean, there's that piece, and then I'm jumping, but the piece about the IFOT that is important is, and this is where I feel like it's also spiritual, it's sort of ancestral. There's a concept of intergenerational and collective trauma impact. That's the distinction between like IFOT and other modalities and things of that sort of work with right? Is that there is this that we are walking. I think you guys called it. I forgot what it was. I'm gonna look at my notes. You see me scrolling down. Trapped emotions, or
trapped emotions.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But it was like the preconception. There it is, the preconception ones, right? All of that is like this concept that like you are not your own nigga, right? You are walking with like generations upon as far back as your actual consciousness could go, right? And what's dope about certain modalities is that, or like Akashic records readers, or certain these types of things, is that they can help you access that you hear somebody talk about, I found out that I was royalty back in, no wonder I like nice shit. You know what I'm saying? Or no wonder,
Right.
like, you know what I'm saying? I like certain things to be a certain way. That energy has been walking with me for eons.
Right.
So it's right. And so instead of being like, am I a bougie bitch? Like, am I this and that third? No, you just like really nice stuff.
Right.
And that doesn't come from this desire of greed. It comes from your ancestors that know that you deserve this type of level of X, Y, and Z. You know what I'm saying? So there's an intergenerational piece, and then there's a collective. So you're walking with not only like what your people have given to you, right? And they've given you trauma behavior, but they've also given you wisdom.
Yes.
Because they overcome, they got through it, right? So the same way that they might have been, right? And so that's when we talk, when you ask me a question about like what's important about going to the past, you have to have it be relevant to yourself now. Don't go back there chilling if you ain't got no purpose as to why you going back there or how it's going to serve your now, right? So that's intergenerational, right? Then there's the collective, right? Absolutely. When George Floyd had that video was out and it was going, it was over and over and over again, and I'm seeing brother, and they're like, I just can't stop watching it, or they're talking to me, and I'm just like, stop watching it, because you see yourself in that man. You can't help but to. We have these things called mirror neurons, right? That's another situation where it's like we literally can't help but see and feel into other people, right? And what's happening. Let them look like us, let them be the same age. Like it's even more visceral. And so you're watching that over and over and over again, and then you got to go to work. And then that one time, you miss the train all the time, but that time when you miss the train, you over here, like you might actually, that might be the trigger to and everybody's like, what the fuck? This nigga missed the train all the time. Why is he tripping like that now? You know what I'm saying? Well, it's because he doesn't know it, but he done took all that in from watching those videos, and then walked out into his life like he just gonna be like, so right. That's the collective piece. That we also need to that is important to understand, because then it takes it up off of you as an individual. That's that Eurocentric shit, right? That you did this, that you did. It's like, no, nigga, we.
Right.
And if nobody on this good green earth wants to be on some like, yeah, what's up? Then ancestors, we did that. Like, hello, hi. Right? So, in one way it's a celebration, and then the other way it's support, right? If you struggling, then they still there. So yeah, intergenerational, collective, having these understandings, having the relationship with nature, and understanding that nature knows no other way other than to support us. So we need to lean into that. Sure, IFOT talks about leaning into the land, leaning into animals, leaning into the Orisha. Hello, hi, right? They're not only represented in land, but they're also or nature. They're represented in animals. So here we have this connection, right, where it's like that crossover was really happening for me. So all of this comes into play, and the beautiful piece about, again, I think there is what makes me special in terms of like a priest and a therapist is that I think I have more of a sacred respect for a person's being and all that they walk with. Yeah. Like I know that you're rolling in with all your people.
Right.
So I'm coming at you a little differently.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and that I'm trained to not take shit personal. That's so important. That doesn't mean I don't get triggered, but I'm not going to I'm not taking anything you're like, even if they're like, you're the shittiest therapist, you don't fucking help me for shit. Da, 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 da. And what makes you feel that way? What is it that I'm doing, right? If I took it personal, I'd be like, oh, straight up? Well, you don't have to motherfucker come back. Like, that's how you feel, you know, blah, 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 right? But no, right? That person is having a moment, and I need to be all like, okay, what is making you feel as though I'm not helpful? Like, what about what I'm doing is not, da, 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 right? And I think that that's important for people to have, because we're not our trauma. We're not our trauma responses. We're not our trauma reactions. And that's just important. Like we can't, especially as priests, we cannot take it personal.
Right.
And we have to be really aware of when we do start taking shit personal, and who are our people, who are our spaces to be able to bring us back, you know, to our grounded self, like in our window of tolerance, so that we can respond from that place, you know. And that shit ain't easy, right? And especially in this work, you know, that's why I'm like, hey y'all, this Fasewa Wellness is for y'all too, like meaning priests and our woes. Like, it's not just send me your clients, but like you too I want to hold space for you too, because they're, you know, like y'all are sitting across some real shit. And so what tools do you have to like, I mean, you have, but like, and would you like some more, right? Or are there some concepts that could help you kind of reframe in the moment, like what's happening? Right. And then what do you need to notice to where it's time to refer?
Right.
Mobile crisis unit, 911. You know, like that's a real thing, you know. Right. So I want to be helpful in that way, to just, you know, help you all know how to assess. But you don't have to be mental health professionals to do it, you know. So yeah.
I should.
All the things.
So you've mentioned it a few times thus far, and you've called it IFI. So what is Indigenous Focus-Oriented Therapy? What is that specifically?
Word. It is a therapy modality. It is a practice. It was developed. It was created, developed, and then facilitated and given to the people by this woman named Shirley Turcotte. She's I love this woman, because so remember how I talked about my process and the thing. So she's white presenting, right? Mm-hmm. So it took me a while in the training to just kind of not see her as a white woman. You know what I'm saying? Talking about like this indigenous decolor, you know what I'm saying? Like all this shit. Even though she introduced herself as like half Métis, she's half indigenous, and then she's half, but she looked like a white woman, right? So I was definitely like, okay. But man, oh man, does she know some shit? And not only does she know some shit, but then she also surrounds herself with people who know shit, and then makes it like practical for people to actually use. So she is a complex sexual trauma survivor, right? Her father molested, her through her childhood, and she was literally learned how to heal herself using the land, so using indigenous practices, concepts to heal herself, literally. And so then she created a modality. Like she created like steps, she created practice, she created concepts, and then laid it out for the people. So it is, again, what I was mentioning before, indigenous, right? So for an indigenous oriented, that means that we are basing our understanding of the problem in indigenous concepts, right? I.e. that it's intergenerational, my fingers over here, intergenerational, and it's collective, everything. right? And that there are ways to get into the body, to get into those trapped emotions and establish what you would call like a felt sense, right? And Jean Genlin is the one who kind of, I'm gonna say it, but coined the term focusing, right? So Indigenous Focus-Oriented Therapist. Focusing is that ability to go inside your body, right? No, that doesn't mean, like, turn your attention inward and pay attention to what's going on in there. To be able to have a dialogue and a relationship with the conversation your body is having that is separate from your head. We'll intellectualize shit all day, but trauma gets trapped here.
Right.
Right. And so these are tools, these are strategies to help you get in there and just find the medicine, right? So that you can heal the hurt, like you can heal the air. And there's so many. My last practice that I was with, Love and Kindness Services in Brooklyn, shout out to Damalia and B. But they've created a kind of shrunken down version. So this is something that happens over a year in 7 modules. They've created these baskets where they called it ITFL, Indigenous Tools for Living. So they took the strategies and the tools from this year-long program and kind of shrunk it into like a 7-week situation. It's like 7 baskets, and it's for everybody who does this like wellness thing, and it is transformational. Like if you ever are interested in either IFOT or just like, and you don't want to do the year-long thing, and you just kind of want to know like what are the little tools, little tidbits, that is the program. That is dope. It does dream analysis, right? It talks about the brain too, like in terms of like, but it equates parts of the brain to animals, right, and their characteristics. It's dope. I could go on and on, but the point, it happens all over Canada. Mostly, every now and then it'll be in the United States, but most of the cohorts are run in Canada.
So can anyone take the? I was on your website, and when I ran into what you're calling IFOT, can anyone take that, or do you have to be a therapist to take it?
So I'm thinking about the cohort, right? Not everybody was a therapist. Not everybody was working in. I think they were doing some form of like healing practice, but it wasn't necessarily credentialed. You know what I mean? And it was interesting because like everybody kind of knew someone from the coaching team. So I think they kind of like brought us in, or like they were like, oh, this is fit. So yeah, I don't think you definitely don't need to be one for the ITFL. But
we need that information. We need
we'll
that
information.
Yeah. We need you to pull us in.
Right. Hey, say less. You know what I'm saying? I get the rotation of the cohorts. So yeah, I'll definitely spread the word.
I think that's something almost necessary for priests and for people who want to be priests and, like you say, hold space for other people. I think that's something that's necessary. Some type of modality of therapy for us to be able to get into and apply in the priesthood. I really do believe that.
I share, and I feel that, and there's like other, modalities like that I think that in terms of like offering a variety, right? There's actually like, so EMDR is like a little bit more intense and requires like a lot of situations. But when you were talking about like the desensitization type of trauma practices, like there's a lot out there. Do I think IFOT is the best? Absolutely. But it's also about like, again, what I was saying earlier, like what fits your learning and like what fits like all the things. So yeah.
Okay.
Ashe.
So I have a question for you, and in my mind, it goes back and forth between whether it's 2 questions or whether they're like separate things. So I'll just lay the bundle to you, and you just kind of go through there how you feel like you want to answer.
All right.
But so I want to ask, what is, in your opinion, or based on what you've seen, either the biggest challenge facing the people that you've helped, or the biggest cause for the trauma for
Mm-hmm.
people that you've helped?
Oh, that's it?
That's it.
I
That's
thought it
it.
was about to
The
be like,
biggest
and then
challenge
what
facing
was,
people or the
right, right, right,
biggest
right, right.
cause of trauma. It may be one and the same. It may be a different answer.
Right. Let me go to my answers on the thing. Okay, Ashe. I told y'all I'm gonna need a reference, right? Because I can be all over the place. So I think so. What I said was, and I'll expound. But like for the most part, right? Experiences or situations that push people past their capacity or ability to effectively cope or cope in a healthy way.
Mm.
So something has happened, right? And that's what usually brings folks to me.
Mm.
And it's like, well, that I would say bring folks to therapy. I would, people who bring to me, I think, are trying to have a space for their spiritual gifts, if you will,
Right.
and how they are dealing with their trauma or their impact, or their coping, right, on how they are, right. But yeah, like I do want to give a shout out to Dr. Kenneth Hardy, because he was the first one who put me on to like sociocultural trauma. And that's also another big, I would say, one of the biggest causes for especially Black people, or like who find themselves in therapy, because it's just, he talks about them as like invisible wounds, but these are like the structural and cultural systemic, isms that impact POC people all day, that we kind of recognizing, we kind of naming, we're kind of being accountable for, but so it's like there's that whole layer. So yeah, I would say between like just any experience that pushes you past your ability to cope effectively, and also sociocultural trauma, which can be a form of that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. For me, the
Talk to me.
beauty about spirituality is the ability to take things that Western science makes very complicated and reduce it down to something very, very simple, right? Like we've all been in, either a part of readings or, involved in readings, divinations, where they'll talk about, based upon how, the Odus fall, they'll talk about how people are holding on to past emotions and things of that nature, right? To me, that seems very, very, very simple. Now, Western science complicate that, and they'll talk about how there will be an event, and then the way your senses view that as it passes through your amygdala and thalamus before it moves to the frontal cortex and things of that nature. And I'm like, what does all that mean? It's just
Right.
basically how you processing, what happened, right?
Right.
But the interesting thing that really what it boils down to, or whether you get it from the more Eastern style or spiritual outlook or the Western style, it's pretty consistent that at the time in which you're faced with the trauma,
Right.
it completely rewires the way and how you think from that moment on, right?
Right.
So you may be dealing with somebody who had a trauma, way back even in their childhood. And that trauma from there forward affected the way in which they think and the way and how they process information, right? So they don't process information the same way that people who didn't have, those types of traumas. So as a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, you may respond to somebody because your mother didn't show you enough nurturing when you were a child, or you were molested by your uncle, or something of that nature. Speak a little bit to your experience about how those past traumas can even show up in adulthood.
Again, how much time do I have to speak broadly and maybe use an example? Because I'm like, this is pretty much like how we move, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are, how do I put this? I believe we are our past, present, and future selves all right now.
Asha.
All right. So you can't help but not be impacted by your past or past experiences.
Mm.
Okay. Now, what determines whether we pay attention to that impact or not is if it's in disrupting something, right, in your life, right, or it's not allowing you to move forward, right, erase, right. You've got some misogyny, you're holding on, right, to whatever the case is. So just to give that that's a very parallel that I use in terms of like when a reading comes in erase, right, versus or a reading comes in a sogbo, it's alignment or out of alignment. You moving forward or you holding on to something, you know what I'm saying? So the example that you used, right, is that like some you were neglected by your mother, you know, back in the day, right? Have you, right? Is that sometimes that'll then turn into as an adult that your worth is based on like how you show up for people, right? Or you might be scared to venture into relationships because you think they'll always leave you. So like there's a lot of, the point is, and the reason why it's important to have the conversation of the body and the head is because I had to find out what did you walk away from that experience understanding about yourself and the world? Because that's what walks with you through the rest of your life until it gets disrupted, right? Until it gets rewritten, if you will, right? And so that's what, that's the impact of the past, right? And that's the impact of this work, is that like some of us are moving because we had to, off of some past ways of being, because at the time it kept us alive. At the time it protected us, right? So even if it's a matter of you never try shit because that one time you did, it blew up in your fucking face. So you just don't try, you know what I'm saying? Like you just, to be fair, in the world of, just being, that's actually really smart. Why would you then go do the thing again and experience that thing, right? Right. So at the time, you probably were avoiding in a very strategic way, but now 20 years later, right, your assessment of you're so used to doing it, your assessment of that avoidance, right, of the thing is a little off. It's been in power mode for about 20 years now. So now you have to kind of like calm it down and be like, yo, chill, this ain't that time. We actually gonna do this. It's safe, right? Grandma's over there, you know what I'm saying? Like they got the sheet music out there, right? You didn't practice it, right? Like you have to talk yourself past that initial survival pattern that, in order to like do something different. Y'all get what I'm saying?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like helping someone facilitate that journey of being like, you know what? Whatever happened in that experience, I need you to understand that whatever you did it to survive, and that's got to be okay. Because you're here now. That is not the time to be all like, stop being a junkie, right? That's not the time to stop being like, you need to, just to get on anybody about what they did. It's grace, it's compassion, it's validation and understanding and reframing, right? Just being like, you do what you did at the time. However, you are not 12 no more.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so but we're looking, so there's a current situation that person, that 32-year-old is going into, that where we have to now go back to when you were 12. Right? But going back to when we were 12 is to go ahead and heal this 32-year-old person who is judging themselves for doing what they're doing. Right? Having shame because they don't go nowhere. They ain't got no friends, it's that and the third. It's like you have to go back and forgive, like you develop that mechanism because you had to. You gotta send gratitude to that shit. Before you tell it to peace out, before you tell it like you ain't working for me no more, you know what I'm saying? Before you do, you gotta be all like, you know what, I appreciate you self at the time. That you knew to like check the fuck out when this man was on top of you. You know what I'm saying? And you just had to do that, right? How beautiful is that you have the skill to survive in that way.
Right.
we have to do that first. That's why I love IFOT. There's a beautiful honoring, indigenous concept, honoring of that self, right? We study the inner critic. That person likes to pop up and be all like, you ain't shit, you ain't enough, you don't deserve that, you ain't nobody, right? Again, that's your best friend. It's just out of position. That was your best friend. They had your back. You know what I'm saying? At that time. But now, what you doing here? It's 5 years later. I've been through the training. I went through my, what you doing? But it's not like, get the fuck away. It's like, oh, hey, I see you. Not right now. It's not that time. You're good. Go back.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it's like about building that literal conversation with yourself. It's okay to talk to yourself. It's okay because you got a lot of selves that you need to engage.
Ashe.
Yeah, Ashe. So I don't know where I went with all that, but
you gave us what we needed to have.
Yeah, I just really feel like, and I will say this too. I don't know if we're gonna get, but like I dead ass believe that everybody possesses what they need in order to be okay, to be well. We have just had a lot of experiences that made us forget.
Right.
Because you talk to any, like that's the perfect example. You curse somebody out. You went to go calm down, and then you realize that wasn't the right thing to do. Right? So it's like we know what to do. We just have to learn how to emotional regulate so that we can not let fear take over. Because fear, trauma, that shit'll make you forget shit that you know to be true. What? And so it's my job, it's our job, right, to be able to remind you, to get you to believe yourself again. And 9 times out of 10, you got past experiences where you were exhibiting that, but because you were so focused on survival and fear and trauma, you couldn't even see it. Right. All you know is it's like, oop. So part of being a therapist too is making it safe enough to feel okay to try that other self on. To recognize, because it's foreign. Like your healthiest self, sometimes it's foreign as fuck. Your wellness, the highest. It's like you're like, who is this bitch eating salads every day? Like you know what I'm saying? When do we start working out? You know what I'm saying? All I'm saying, it's like, well. It's a relearning process too, to be with your well self, right? So it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things.
Yeah. So Fafore and myself, I think we were cognizant early on about the therapeutic aspect, the counseling aspect of being a priest, the priesthood, of being able to hold space for people and those type of things. So. And then our Luo started to recommend to us books about the emotional self, my grandmother's hands and things like that. And then Fafore and myself started to read books like The Body Keeps the Score.
Hey.
And then I picked up a book. Called The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And he talked a lot about trapped emotions and about emotions being trapped in the body, like you said. But he talked about this thing called absorbed emotions, that we could have trapped emotions that are attached to experiences that are not ours, that are experiences of other people. What do you think about our ability or our lack thereof to absorb trapped emotions from experiences that are not ours?
Ashe. So you remember my George Floyd example earlier, right?
Right.
So by just watch and I mentioned this these things called mirror neurons, right? And they are literally the things in our body that I believe allow us to have empathy. Like I can, watch somebody eating some lemon, right? And then my mouth starts salivating. You ever notice that? Like, or you watch somebody eat some food, or a little kid watch you eat food, and they're like, you know what I'm saying? They're trying to eat it too. It's like there's a mirroring, right? There's also too, like watching sports games, and somebody shoots and scores, and you see somebody else be like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like It's that same, and we're excited, like we're doing all the things. We're not playing the basketball game, right? But we hyped, right? We are probably we're matching, we're absorbing that excitement, right? From not just the players, but from the game, from the announcer, from the music, like pump it up, like all those things come into, you know, that play. So absolutely, like, I'm also speaking about the collective and intergenerational piece, right? The collective piece speaks to that idea that like we are open to other people's shit just because we are social beings.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we can't, that's just how we're wired. So it's there's a reason why there's like there's these terms in psychology, you know, whatever, called transference and countertransference, right? Where between a client and a therapist, like they're talking about their dead mom and like your mom might have died and you start to, you know, have a moment. It's like you're being triggered, right? Or their experience is now reminding you of your experience and like all the things, right? So there's all types of tools that we use to like block that, like pew pew, right? But what I'm noticing is that even as there's actually, we actually need to kind of dip into that a little bit more. There's I thought dips all the way the fuck in there, right? But we use distancing, right? We use metaphors, we use land and Orisha, or not Orisha, but animals to kind of distance what's happening, right? So it's not the person reliving the moment and re-trigger and traumatizing themselves. But I agree. What I think about that is that he's absolutely correct, right? And part of our job is to get in there, figure out what's yours, figure out what's not yours, set that other shit down in nature or put it somewhere, again, where it could hold. That's what it's for, right? It's been holding. Stones are the oldest motherfuckers here on this earth. You know how much wisdom they have and how much information they probably got in there? Right? Or just like the how much life has been just absorbed in those rock, like this. You think about the ocean, right? All those slaves that were just like, not me, son, you know, or just like went over, or just whatever the case is. Like when we go to the beach, when we go to the thing, we're absorbing all of that. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, it's a very real thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah, you know, some of these concepts help us better understand the emotional self. In that same work, he talked about, you mentioned it earlier, about the preconception trapping, and he talked about while still in the spirit realm, that we experience the emotions of fear, of grief, of abandonment, because we didn't want to come to a place where pain existed. And so we bring with us to the womb emotions from the spirit realm. And being that you are a therapist and a priest, what do you have to say about that? What do you think about our ability to bring emotions from the spirit realm into the physical realm and still have those things affect us here today?
You see me squinting, right? And you see me like looking off, and yeah. I think what I'm not familiar with the term all the way, and then also with the book. But what's coming up for me is this concept that we are ancestors return. So if that is true, then it makes sense that we are coming with that ancestors stuff,
right?
I.e., emotions, like i.e., medicine, i.e., trauma responses, you know, just all the things. So in there, I would imagine that you got some perpetuation of emotions. I remember Oluo was saying one time that, you know, if there's a history of heart attacks in your family, right, and your like generations, you also look at the history of heartbreak, right? And so I think about like what's historically like happening in a family medically. You know what I'm saying? I'm now curious to be all like, I wonder what type of bundle of emotions that this generation of lineage kept recycling or kept putting back into the womb. You know what I'm saying? For like whoever to like kind of break that cycle or to break that relationship to hearts and or what have you. Oh shit, that got me thinking. You gotta send me the book, you know. I'm interested. But yeah, but that's what I think about when you mentioned that.
Yeah, it was an awesome book, and like I said, Fafore and myself we are dedicating ourselves to the emotional selves of people. I think as priests, we're already focusing on the physical self and the spiritual self. The emotional self is going to be something that I think we want to add and give that therapeutic aspect to the priesthood. a while back. I think my very first introduction to anything that had to do with the mind, anything psychological, was a book that I read called The Lucifer Effect. It was written by Philip Zimbardo, and it was a documentation of his Stanford prison experiment back in the late 60s. And he said that all human beings have the template to perpetrate evil. But more importantly than that, he found that it wasn't dispositional, that it was situational, that it was our environment that made us do the things that we felt like we had to do, like you say, to survive. So how much of a role does our environment play in our trauma? And how can we heal from those traumas if we still have to exist in those same environments?
Part of the reason why I became a priest or include this spiritual component is because, it's more than just nature and nurture. You know what I mean? Like, it's more than just like being born, and then the more it's about like being raised or like growing up. Because like, again, we have this idea that there are other unseen forces that are at play in that quote unquote formula, right? So that's that. I think I always get a little tricky with the word evil, so that's why I'm like trying to
right
reframe or just like
right
but like let's say like but I'll reframe it in terms of just like darkness, right? And I think about like our relationship between light and dark, but also the reframing that even the light and the dark need balance in order for them to be their best selves, if you will. And so if that environment, if that nature and that nurturing and those unseen forces, if you will, are not in balance, or there's an imbalance somewhere along the way, then I could imagine one winning more than the other. So that the whatever darkness, you know what I'm saying? If there's not enough light to balance that shit out, because you could live in the hood, you could live in some really fucked up places, really dangerous places, and you're good. Or like people are okay, you know what I'm saying? Like war torn, like all types of stuff. Like people, survive and they thrive and they're still, doing things. And then some people don't. And I just think there's just a lot of factors other than, but I think what helps me frame that is the dark and light and the balance. Right. So even when, I am encountering a client or a situation, it's like, where is the ratio here? And can I either provide enough light or provide enough reframe of the darkness? Because it's still important, right? To help facilitate some balance up in here. Yeah. So I don't think I think everybody's situation is different in terms of like that constellation around nature, nurture, and unseen forces, so that's how I would answer that.
Ashe. What you do and how you do what you do and others in that area is kind of reshaping my thought on therapy. I used to be against therapy for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was married, once, long time ago. I had like a Kim Kardashian marriage. It was like in and out. It was quick. So, but at one point we went to couples therapy, right? Went with some counseling, right? And it's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time, but you know how when you go see a therapist, the first thing you do is tell them why you're there.
Right.
So as everybody's kind of telling their story, depending on where you are emotionally, there's going to be some reactions because people are reliving it like it just happened yesterday, right? So, I mean, I think we may have made it through like three sessions maybe. And as I'm telling my story, she wasn't feeling it. It was like it happened all over again, right? And she actually left. My ex-wife stormed out and left. And the counselor looked at me and she was like, "Yeah, if I was you, I'd get up out of there." I was like, "Wow, for real? You're supposed to be the therapist." I said, now I like to play a lot. I really find humor in everything. So I'm laughing as she's saying what she's saying. Like, yeah, you see what I got to deal with? But how do you deal with that challenge of those emotions being high as you're reliving the past?
I would you okay, there's a couple things going on here. One, I'm sorry that you had those types of experiences, and I'm glad that you are open or reopening your mind to therapeutic spaces. It's not always therapy, but like therapeutic spaces, right? And so when I've done a little couples counseling, and if I check in with the people ahead of time. I need to know, or it's important for me to know that, again, we agree on how to be in this space. If I notice that you are not there and you need time to move through some emotions, we do not meet, because it is not productive, right? For both people to be high up here, I know you're not thinking logic, you're not grounded. You're not coming from a particular, you're demonstrating for the lady or for the person or whatever, just like the dynamic, right? And I think you were trying to like not demonstrate the dynamic, but like work on the dynamic and like move through it. But you get what I'm saying. So
right, absolutely.
if I was that, I would not. I don't. It is not beneficial. If I notice that you are up here, we're done. We are talking. We are de-escalating. We are working on calming the body. It's not dismissive, but they have now they understand through working with me that like when you're up here, we need to look at that, because whatever it is, it's taking you up here. Do you want to be up here? No. Okay, well. Do you think clearly up here? No. Okay, well. So do you hold space for other people? Do you have? No. Okay, well. I have to get you to that place, or else what is that?
Right.
That's not, you're putting other people in a place of harm. Nay.
Right.
Yeah, no. So I think I think I get it, because I just started my practice, and so I take my time kind of vetting people for counseling, you know what I'm saying? Because people show up and they're like, I'm here, you know what I'm saying? And it's like you have to kind of be, responsible and be all like, I'm not a sex therapist. That sounds like let me put you on to so and so. You know what I'm saying? Not that, or it sounds like you and your family need that. Like, so it's facilitating that and understanding that it's going to be difficult to do anything individual if we don't tap this collective. Doesn't mean nothing can't be done, but it's just a different type of approach. So to say what I didn't answer this part, I will say around, how can you heal in the place of harm?
Right. Yeah. It's
very difficult, but it's not impossible.
Right.
And that's why I fucks with Ifa, right? That's why I think I fucks with something outside of people. You know what I mean? Like, so that I can engage with these things and which means I'm engaging with myself, right? But it makes me feel like I'm talking to somebody. So it's like when I know I need to curse somebody, I can go to my ancestors, curse them all the way out. But they go love me. You know what I'm saying? Like this, it's not that type of, you know what I'm saying? But it's like if I have that, oh my God. I'd be out here in these streets losing character and losing jobs. You know what I'm saying? So that's not what we're here to do. But there is, so there are things. So for instance, like, there are some things that you sometimes can't carry your way out of, to be fair, right? You have to actually take some other steps. It's not about kumbaya, breathing, whatever the case. It's just like, it's to get the fuck out, right? Or just whatever the case. So it's also knowing when to assess, when to use what it is that you need to, to use. So yeah, so I mean, it's just difficult, but I am paying attention so much to how you're saying versus more than what you're saying.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's telling me a lot of things. Like, it's like I got I got this one it's not a guy fellow Iya sent me one of her clients, and we started working together, and she's barely a year in, like barely. And she's like, and then I dropped my OB, and then that's what I'm saying. And I wonder if Eshu, you know what I'm saying? Does that mean that? And then I mean, like going in and like forgetting pure common sense, like forgetting her own intuition, like forgetting a lot of these, because it was just all about, I was just like, okay, I know you asked me this question about OB, and I know you asked me this question about this, but sis, look at you. Look how you asking. I need you to calm down. I need you to slow down. And my question for you is, what's going on to where you have to where you are like you going full fledged into this? And I'm not saying it right, because there's nothing wrong with diving deep, deep in. But at the same time, we're told about this practice bit by bit, especially our first year.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so we're so thirsty for answers. And so that's what I wanted her to look at, was this idea that, like, stop, look up, you got a job, you got a home, you got people that love you and care about you. You know what I'm saying? You got these things. Chill the fuck out. Slow down. Like, just really slow down. Like, you can slow down, literally. You don't have to do any of these things to save your life, to get a job, to keep your housing. You know what I'm saying? Like, all, why I can understand why people are like frantic, like, Eva, like, give me the things, like, and I need to understand, It's, but because other than that, it's like there's no way you can learn this shit fast. There's no way. In my experience. There's just no, and this is a lifelong situation. Some shit I was told in 2016 is like just now rolling out. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's and in between all that, I've probably gotten like 1,000 monthly readings. You know what I'm saying? That had more information in it. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm getting Tadagoons, and then my yearlies that have more information. It's like, it's a lot.
It is.
And so it's like, and so I'm interested. I'm like, how, because I'm paying attention to me, like, how are you in just receiving all of this, in integrating this, in digesting this? How is it making sense for you in your life on this good United States of America? Like, because we're not Nigeria.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So I got people who are like, I don't have all the things. I can't make my offering. Do you have sincerity? Because what if you had nothing? You know what I'm saying? Like that, like it's not based off of things. It'd be great, it'd be nice. Yes, they are required in some situations, but for the most part, if you just want to get somebody used to the idea of receive, you have to give in order to receive. Then sincerity has to be enough.
So let's talk about prescription drugs. Prescription drugs. We've talked about these trapped emotions. We talked about trauma, holding on to old emotional hurts. And let's talk a little bit about how we heal from those things, or the how of getting rid of these things. And for as far back as we can remember, drugs, prescription medication have been prescribed to help with all of these things listed in the DSM. What are your thoughts about prescription drugs, and whether or not they help in the short term or the long term?
Shay, for me, it's I don't have like a blanketed really feeling about it, because I've experienced a lot of different scenarios where I've seen it be helpful, especially in children. And I was one where I was just like, nah, son, like, don't do that. But what I think was helpful was that this parent paired it with therapy. Like, it wasn't just the medication, right? It was also teaching the skills, right? Or the ways that are going to help support this way of thinking, or this way of understanding, the world. I was just talking with a client tonight where I was like, I because they're like, we don't believe in medication. And I was like, cool. And there is such thing as a chemical imbalance, right? And so whether it's prescription drugs or natural or what have you, it's speaking to that imbalance, right? And so I do think that it is important for people to establish and feel their baseline. Because when you're manic all the time, how do you know what to work towards? Like, how do you know what your grounded is? Like, how do you know when you're not manic, right? How do you know, you know what I'm saying, when you're not depressed? Or how do you know? So I think sometimes medication can help support establish that. But again, with therapy, so that that person can know how to get to that baseline without medication, right? And so I'm not sure about, I think long term might be important for like maybe like schizophrenia, you know, or diagnoses that really impact one's like daily functioning. But I also feel like I'm saying that because we may not have the spaces right now to where practitioners who can arrive to these healing spaces without prescription medication don't have like centers and these big, you know, buildings and you know what I'm saying, to where like that's a norm and that's like a not, you know, it's still considered weird and off the things and it might not work and all the, you know, so because I also believe in like psychedelics and shit like that being able to help you access some trap shit, you know what I'm saying, or some stuff that like your competent self, you know what I'm saying, just can't get to, you know what I'm saying, because it's got the fears, it's got all the stuff. But you take some shit and you in fuck it mode, you might just, you know, roll there and you got a shaman to help guide you and all the things. So I've seen people have a lot of beautiful breakthroughs and really release some shit in weeks from using psychedelics and other medicines. So yeah, no, I now, to be fair, if I feel like you on something and I don't know what it is, and you trying to have a session, nay. I will be like, hey, it seems like you may not be your full self right now. Is that true? Did you take, and you know, have you been drinking? And no judgment, but I can't have a session with you like this. Yeah, versus like someone who has explained to me like that they may smoke right before session because that might help them, you know, X, Y, and Z. Again, it's not for me to judge. If I feel like that is really helping you and we're arriving to the goals that you want to establish, then merry holiday. You know what I mean? Like it's not for me to, and that's the other thing too. That's why I love working for myself, because being in the schools, you know, I was with them high schoolers, they were self-medicating all day, but I understood. Now, could I say that? Nay. You know what I'm saying? But I wasn't going to report them. Like I wasn't going to, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that was just, it was a tricky slope, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm calling the parent who smokes with you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Who's holding you accountable? Like, it's the school's rules? Like, yeah. So there's stuff like that. But if you're rolling into school with, you know, half a vodka and Gatorade in your bottle, then yeah, let's what's going on? I'm more curious than I am punitive. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just gonna be like, what's up? Is this a daily thing? Like is
right.
You know?
No, you hear right on. You hear right on. Following in something that you said earlier, like you mentioned at the beginning of the interview, you were talking about like kind of like the founding fathers of psychology and, you know, coming from a Eurocentric viewpoint. I mean, when I think of that, I think of people like Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, which I kind of like Carl Jung. I feel like he might have been a priest. Yeah, no. You know, he was into divination and astrology and the whole nine. Ivan Pavlov, for whatever reason, he always is at like the forefront because of the Pavlov dogs, and you know, with feeding time, he would ring the bell. So you know, he got to the point where they were trained. He would ring the bell, and they would start, you know, salivating in anticipation of the dinner coming because it was associated with the bell. But one of the things that he talked about that I found interesting being a priest is his work on reflex of purpose, where he talked about there's nothing more important in life than having a purpose and how critical it is to your life, to your quality of life. In your practice, how much or if at all, do you talk to people about purpose? And how important do you think that is for overall good mental health?
Ashe. I feel purpose can be important, and I try to hold space for whatever someone may call it.
Mm.
Right. So that was important for me. So I ask my clients, right, what they feel like their purpose is. And if they say it's to be, to wear roller skates, a G-string, and sunglasses in Central Park every day to bring joy to the people, it's not for me to be all like, are you sure you're not supposed to be a chef, or that's like, or just whatever. Like, and so, because what it is that person has something that helps them understand why they're here, right, and keeps them going. And so that is where I feel like, yes, I think folks who lose an intention or purpose to be here, like they're on their way out.
Right.
Or they're feeling like they, what am I doing here? Yeah. So that's it's important. But it's also important for people to define what that is for themselves. And even, and it's interesting because, like, when we in Ifa, it's like, well, you told, what I'm saying, Egbe, and was it Oludumare, what you wanted to do while you was up there before you came down, and then when you came down, you forgot all your shit. So then your life is to kind of figure out and realign with that. And somebody might not have that understanding.
Right.
But one thing I offer is that I make a suggestion. Because I'm not asking anybody to adapt what I adapt and what I learned. But I was like, so one way that I understand it is you made this agreement. There's this purpose that you deep down wanted to do that was probably, all the things. And now you forgot. And so your experiences are probably leading you to this thing. So I would maybe even guide you or like ask about your experiences. But then invite them to then check in to see, is there a purpose there?
Right.
There's no way I could do that, but I can find the moments where it might have been clear.
Right. I
right. Yeah.
So in your practice, you are Iya Fasewa, priest of Oséùn, priest of Ifa. Like, there's no, hey, I'm a licensed therapist, but on the side, I'm doing all of this to kind of help figure things out. You are upfront, like, hey, this is who I am.
Because I work for myself. Okay, that was the whole point. Right. Because I'm gonna do libations at the beginning of my workshop. You feel me? I'm gonna call in the ancestors, and I'm gonna ask y'all to call in the benevolent ancestors to come assist you in this work we're about to do today. Hell yeah! It's so like it's my show. Like, is this how we doing it? And that shit feels good. It feels really good.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So we got some couple easy ones, and then we gonna land this plane. It's been a dope episode, but question I have for you is, so on a daily basis, you are hearing about all these people's problems, all these issues. I can only imagine. I mean, just reading the book, The Body Keeps the Score. There was a couple of times where he's telling these stories, and I had to be like, whoa, hold on. It's hard for me to read it, let alone sit across from the person that's their story. Like the guy that was in the war, and he lost, all his friends over there in the war, squadron, platoon, whatever they call it, and how he took that anger. And you talked about going to villages, killing women and kids, raping women. I'm like, whoa, that's heavy. And now he has to come back home and be this successful lawyer, that he later on became. But he's going through all these things. Yeah, I don't know if I would I don't know if I would have been able to sit through that. Like I don't know. How do you manage to keep yourself just going?
Great question. And I sit with this every day. What is required, is it's a practice every day. hence why I build this whole practice, and I'm teaching other people how to build a wellness practice, because life keep on lifing. Shit ain't gonna stop. Stress is gonna be doing what stress do. Okay. And so you need to know, and it can come from any fucking, like it's you don't have control over a lot of it. So, but what you do have control over is how you respond to it, and then how you make yourself well. And so how dope would it to be able to help people, because it's very specific. This shit is layered, and it's, you know what I'm saying? As soon as you think you done mastered an emotion in a particular area, you go someplace else and there it is again. Didn't even know. And now you have to be all like, oh, well, I thought I got rid of it. And it's like, you got rid of that part in that setting from that trigger. But your anger is dynamic as fuck. It's layered. It's complex. It's got so many experiences attached to it that we cannot always, be aware of what's going to rustle it back up. Unconscious, right? Trapped. We got shit in there we ain't even, we can name. So it's like we have to be able to be all like, oh, okay, that baby crying in the back, I'm gonna slap the shit out of it. You know what I'm saying? That's not appropriate. You know what I'm saying? Okay, let me regulate, do all the things. Like, oh, okay, that's because, like, you have to be able to see the trigger. What's your reaction? How'd you take care of yourself? Take on the next trigger. See the react. I'm literally building a wellness workbook. I've already created it. I'm trying to get it published. Help me out, y'all. Trying to raise $5,000, right, to get it to the publisher, because it's literally the workbook. It's literally that same thing. I'm breaking down the concepts. I'm giving you opportunities to name your triggers. I'm giving you opportunities, and I mean the ones that you ain't gonna tell nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like that you ain't, that you could be really honest with yourself. Then it's like, how are you responding to that shit? Did you shut down? I have this. I don't have it. I use the concept of window of tolerance. Did it take you above your window of tolerance, i.e. anxiety? Did it take you below? Like, just learning yourself and what were you telling yourself? What narrative was going on in there? And then what are the sources of wellness? I call them the souls. What are the sources of wellness that you access to then regulate your body, make it feel safe again if it was triggered, remind yourself of the things that you know to be true, right? And so sources of wellness can be therapy. It could be that big ass bag of Oreo cookies that you got, you know what I'm saying, that you dedicate yourself to every Friday because you just ready, right? It could be that beautiful painting of the trees or the artwork behind you. It could be the hug from your little cousin that you don't see in a long time. It could be watching airport reunion videos on YouTube for like 20 minutes. It could be, the bomb ass Carmex because, lips crack. That don't feel good. You know what I mean? So just really reframing all the things that actually make us well, that are just within our sight. Right? And if we train ourselves, we're updating that on a consistent basis, then not only are we focusing on the things that don't make us well, darkness, right? We're able to still balance it out with the things that do make us well.
Ashe.
And once you do that, then you can take on that next stressor because it's coming. And so you got to know your practice. And so it's about, I don't know where I got to that point, but it's bringing, in terms of like how I take care of myself. It's just understanding, you know what I'm saying? That like I too have a right to move through my own process.
Ashe.
And it's up to me though to find the places in order to do that. Now, do I have some not so great coping? Of course. I just smoke the cigarettes all day. Okay. That's not great, right? Like I may go a little too overboard with the weed, right? Or just like the smoking, right? But I can know when I'm gone off track and I need to bring in some more balance, right? So it's not even so much about shaming myself about smoking weed, you know what I'm saying? But then it's like there's a responsibility that I have in order to use it to then be able to still show up as my best self or what have you. You know what I'm saying? Or am I actually coming off after that blunt, you know what I'm saying, feeling better, feeling lighter, feeling like I've released some things? Like, have I actually used the medicine for what it's for? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Not all the time, but I'm working on it. But like, I just started working out, you know what I'm saying? But like I took a little break. And so because at that time, that was not what I could do to keep myself well or to keep myself in things. But trust and know, I was still trying to. So it's like, it's a practice. It literally is. It's a practice. But I'm hella trained to stay connected but protected. So again, I've heard some shit. I've seen some shit because I've been in the field too. Like you're right. It's a lot of tears, a lot of crying, a lot of just releasing, and a lot of just anger, frustration at just like how the fuck, like there's all of that. Don't think there's not. And there's times where I don't always regulate it the best. Because one, I may not have time, but I still got to go to work. I think about like at work, right, where I see kids back to back to back sometimes, and that first period Jimmy Jam is like, what I'm saying, knockout. I still got all them kids. But what I've learned to do now is to be all like, hey, I need help because I need to go take care of myself.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Or I will tell the kids, I know this is not what you wanted or expected for today, but this is what I need. And just pray that they trust me and that they see me modeling boundaries and me taking care of myself.
Right.
But it's hard. It's hard. Telling people no is hard. What? Especially where they're like, I'm bleeding, I'm dying, I'm homeless, I got raped. It's like it's hard to be all like, damn, you need to call this number.
Right.
But I have to.
Right. Absolutely.
But that shit is hard. I ain't gonna lie. But it works.
I can imagine. So before we get out though, can you mention again for the people the alternatives to the I-5?
Okay, yes, hold on. Go ahead.
Oh no, you good.
Well, yeah, it's ITFL. So Indigenous Tools for Living. It is facilitated through Love and Kindness. Yeah, the Love and Kindness, they are the organization that facilitates it. And I'll put you on.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah.
2 more questions and then we out of here. So I've been eating healthy. I've been going to therapy, doing the yoga, hit the weed every now and again, got my breathing techniques down, all that other good stuff, crystals all around, whatever. How do I know I'm healed?
Can you tolerate better past triggers? When they show up, right? Do you have a better tolerance? Does it still impact you the same way? Are you able to stay grounded in that moment or arrive, to your grounding a lot quicker? Like instead of taking you 5 days, it might take you 3, right? Or instead, you know what I'm saying? So, or instead of cursing them all the way out, you made in person, you might have sent the email. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think because I think it looks differently. I feel like on people, like it to me, it's like, and I ask clients that question. I'll say, what does your fully healed self look like? If you no longer had depression, tell me your day to day. So you can even imagine, right? Like what it would be like. And 9 times out of 10, it's that. And I help guide you towards that.
Ashe.
Yeah, Ashe.
Ashe. Last question. Tell the people how they can follow you, get in contact with you, check out your business, sign up for your workshops, all that good stuff.
All the things.
Help you publish your book.
Woo! Okay.
Yeah. How can they help donate? All that good stuff.
Word up. Well, you can definitely find, if you're looking for therapy, and this is something new I'm going to offer. Even if you're just looking, if you're curious, right? Like if you used to be in therapy and you're like, I'm not sure, I want to go back, but I had a shitty experience, or I don't want to tell my story again, or I don't want, like other things, hit me up. Let's have a session. And all it takes is 1 or 2, because I can potentially give you what you need to then go into that, to then go to that therapist that takes insurance, or just that you can afford, that's in your city or whatever, or that's in person. But that, to dispel that whole thing about like, if you have been in therapy before and you're coming back, you're not starting from scratch. You can actually dictate to the therapist how you want it to go. You can tell the therapist what you want to work on. You ain't got to be up in there wasting time. Okay, so Ashe. Yes, FasewaWellness.com. For you to access individual therapy. You can go to the individual therapy page, and then there's a calendar, and you just click on the date that works best for you. And also too, I do mental health consulting. So if you are an organization that wants to help facilitate wellness more into the fabric of the culture of your organization, the content, even just amongst you as colleagues, hit me up. I can help support that. And then also too, if you're looking for an Ifa reading or a house cleansing or an Omiero or spiritual bath to help cleanse or receive any particular things, then I can also help with that. I am building a wellness workbook that I use and that will be used with alongside clients. I also do work with the Department of Education. So that this is something that that is fully formed. It's all laid out. I got a beautiful web design, B. Rogers, shout out. And it's ready to go. I just need the funding to be able to get it into publishing and then into production, which is $5,000. I do have a GoFundMe. You can find me on IG at Fasewa Wellness or Cutie Rock, QTROC. I'm possibly on like a whole bunch of other places that I can't name right now, but we can start right there. It'll guide you to all the wonderful places. I'll be doing a bunch of workshops this year because this wellness I'm not playing with it. It's super. I'm already using it kind of unconventionally in the spaces that I'm in, and it makes sense. It makes sense to my high schoolers. It makes sense to the staff. It makes sense to my individual clients. I got a 10-year-old that's rocking with it. Like it's very digest, you know what I'm saying? So I'm hyped. I need to get it out to the people, y'all. So yes, I will post all the things. You can go to my IG page and you can still, if you weren't like, what do I get kind of for Christmas or for the holiday or for her, that would be it, make a donation, right? If you ever thought that like, man, I want to support, this is one of the biggest things that I think I will be contributing to the world with. And I want to make it happen. So if y'all believe in the kid, drop a little something, and we can make this work. We can make it happen. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Ashe, we really appreciate you again spending some time with us at the Who Made Y'all Priest podcast. We thoroughly enjoyed you, and we hope at some point to have you on again.
Absolutely. Y'all just hit me up. This was so wonderful. I mean, it made me think about my practice, maybe reflect in a really wonderful way. So thank you for that. Yeah, I'm very, very grateful for you all having me on here. Thank you.
Ashe. Family, I know that you're going to enjoy, or you have enjoyed this episode. 2023 is a very, very important year. It's a universal year 7, right? And it's going to be a year where you're going to actually go within. It's going to be a year that you're going to reflect. You're going to reflect on where you've been, where you are, where you're going. And what you'll realize is that there's a roadblock between where you are and where you're going. And that roadblock is trauma. And the way you get through that is through healing. And for many of us here, the way we heal from that trauma is going to be through therapy. I know in certain communities it's taboo to go see a therapist. That's something that we have to get around. I just said it myself, that was a thing for me as well. But now I see the importance of therapy. So this season, we are going to give you every tool that we know of to help facilitate healing. So family, get healed so you can get through that obstacle, so you can get to the other side and get to the business of what you came here to do. We love you. We appreciate you. And as always, life's a journey. Don't forget the map. Peace.
Peace.